there it was, the entire ceremony, the momentous occasion where a lot of anticipation was building up, that came to a culmination. But an important aspect to it is what I'm going to discuss about the vision, the thought that has gone into the creation of Ram Mandir. What does it signify? What is it a symbol of? And that was also spoken about by the Prime Minister of our country. And I'm going to quickly just quote him. And he says that the Shri Ram Janmabhoomi temple is not just a God temple. Rather, this is the temple of India's vision, India's philosophy, India's direction. This is the temple of national consciousness in the form of Ram. Joining me on the telecast right now is Ashwin Sankhi, and quickly getting a response from you, Ashwin, in a position that India finds itself in. Today we are the 5th largest economy of the world. We are soon going to be able to reach the $5 trillion GDP mark. By 2047, the ambition that India holds is to become amongst the top 3 nations of the world. In a position that we find ourselves in, where there is the renaissance of India that is being talked about on a larger sense, when we talk about rediscovery of India, when we talk about how we fought the shackles of slavery and came 75 years into independence, there is now need for breaking these shackles again, which is reflective of a number of actions that have been taken by this government, whether it is about the creation of the new parliament, whether it is about the G20 Leaders Summit, whether it is about Subhash Chandra Bose's statue, whether it is about we have Sardar Patel's statue. So these symbolizations, these actions also are reflective of a changing India. Are we now definitive in knowledge that this is what we represent, this is what a changing India looks like, and this is how a developed India is going to function in the coming years?
Cultural renaissance. You use the word renaissance, but the word renaissance means rebirth. But how can there be rebirth of something that never died? Look around you in the world. The Roman gods like Minerva and Apollo are gone. The Greek deities like Apollo and Athena are gone. The Egyptian idols like Ra and Osiris are gone. The Incan and Mayan gods have disappeared. Zoroastrian beliefs have vanished from Iran. So even China lost its belief system to communism. So what remains? Ram, Krishna, Shiv, Ganesh, Durga, and the pantheon of 33 kotis of Sanatan gods. A belief system that we proudly now know as being pre-Bronze Age. So our deities survived against all odds. So frankly, rather than calling this a moment of renaissance, let us simply celebrate this as a moment of our survival. Nothing more, nothing less. It is our moment of survival of Sanatan. Ayodhya, in that sense, symbolizes that spirit of survival.
Okay, that's an interesting aspect. And also, when we talk about Ram Raj, and we talk about what is the concept of Ram Raj, when we tell somebody who's sitting continents away from us, and the kind of misconstrued perception that is created, because it has been a world where there are invaders and the ones that get invaded. And therefore a perception that, if it's Ram Rajya, then are you talking about Ram? And then automatically when you talk about Ram, it is about Hindus. So are you saying Hindus are going to conquer the entire world?
Okay, yeah, but you're right. Ram Rajya is often equated with a Hindu Rashtra of sorts, and that is the standard misperception that happens. And frankly, some worry that the resurgence of Sanatan almost marks the beginning of a Hindu Rashtra. But these very observers, they forget that Bharat is plural because of Hinduism. They forget that the framers of our constitution did not envisage a quote-unquote secular state in which the government would stay out of the religious ambit completely. Frankly, if India were truly secular, then donations from Hindu temples could never have been appropriated by successive governments for the exchequer, nor could Muslim personal law have been given state recognition, nor would the Waqf boards or Hajj committees have had money or power. Our founding fathers contemplated a plural society where all faiths would be treated equally, and they deliberately omitted the word secular from the preamble, and that word remained out of our constitution's preamble for 27 years from 1949 to 1976. So the question I must ask you today is, did Bharat become a Hindu Rashtra during that time of 27 years? So whether you call it Ram Raj or Hindu Rashtra, it doesn't matter, because the intrinsic Hindu spirit, the Sanatani spirit, is one of accommodation and mutual respect. And
Agreed.
That's why, in fact, even the sketches of Ram, Lakshman and Sita have been incorporated into the pages of our constitution on no less than the page that starts about fundamental rights.
Absolutely. Ashwin, also taking forward your thought and comparing it to the Abrahamic religions, talking particularly about Christianity or Islam, where there are these tenets, the testaments, that talk about in Christianity Jesus being supreme, or in Islam we have Prophet Muhammad, and the fact that they believe that spreading Christianity, converting people into Christians, into Islam, is the supreme work of purity, supreme obeisance to their gods that they can do. And in contrast, like you mentioned, when you talk about Hindu Rashtra, there has been no conversion that has taken place. There are no forced conversions that have taken place. There has been no sentiment of taking control of territories that fall outside of the Indian subcontinent, fall outside of India. And that's the sentiment that needs to be sent out to the world when we are talking about Hindu Rashtra, when we're talking about Ram Raj, when we're talking about, because Ram Rajya here stands for good governance, and Ram was revered, venerated as the ideal man for the duties that he performed with the utmost of his ability, which was the ideal, which was the most apt thing to do. And can the description of Ram Rajya then be further spread and expanded to the rest of the world? Because Ramayana, Mahabharata, Ram Rajya actually are just the way of life. These are the tenets to the way you live, and not about any religion per se.
Precisely why all of this is happening in our times, because we suddenly now have a prime minister who realizes that there is a fundamental difference between religious roots and civilizational roots. For example, you can have the world's largest Muslim country, which is Indonesia, that takes great pride in a work which is known as the Ramayana Kakavina, which is their version of the epic. They still perform masked ballet dances to depict this story. Their religious identity may be Islam, but their civilizational identity is Hindu. In the Philippines, we have the Maharadya Lavana, which is again another form of the epic, and the famous dance of Singkil takes its inspiration from there. Now, the religion of the people of the Philippines is very much Catholic, but they have not forgotten their civilizational identity. This is where I think this distinction needs to happen, because, we look at this word Hindutva with disdain. What we don't realize that Hindutva is simply the ability to put one's civilizational identity above religion, caste, language, or gender. And our Prime Minister understands this and is not shy about professing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because when he speaks about all religions of, the temple is in fact a symbol of India's vision, India's philosophy, India's direction. The temple reflects the national consciousness in the form of Ram. So how do we explain this to the world? How do we then, and also the fact, when he talks about India's vision, India's philosophy, India's direction, where is the direction that Prime Minister is taking India towards?
So I think the easiest way of being able to explain this is through the identity of Ram. Because what does Ram represent? He symbolizes righteousness, virtue, gratitude, calmness, truthfulness, fairness, compassion. But he also exemplifies determination and strength and courage and competence. And aren't those the very qualities that India is aspiring to? So, in that sense, by simply looking at the qualities of Ram, you can understand where Ram Raj should be going. Look, we also need to bring out the fact that this is a wounded civilization. Okay, Sitaram Goel estimated that around 3,000 temples were destroyed during various Islamic conquests. And he went on to add that the actual number could be a multiple of that. Take one example of Somnath, which was looted or pulled down first in the 8th century by Al Junaid, then again during all the invasions of Ghazni, then by Alauddin Khilji in 1299, then again in the 14th century by Zafar Khan, who was the Muslim governor of Gujarat, then by Mahmud Begada, the Sultan of Gujarat, and the final blow, of course, came from Aurangzeb. Now, this is one single Somnath. Repeat this story across hundreds of religious sites, and you will see what I mean. We know that most of those temples are permanently lost to us, but Ayodhya is the starting point of hope that some of our wounds could eventually heal, and we need to make the world understand that this is a part of the therapeutic healing process.
Okay. Talking also about politics and how there have been a number of political parties who have not represented themselves at the Ram Temple inauguration ceremony, even though there were invites that had been sent out to them. They are building the narrative that this is an RSS BJP platform to get the vote bank of the Hindus, to build a communal divide in the country. Now,
Yes.
how off are they, or how would the citizens of our country made to believe that this is not a Hindu event, this is not a religious event that has taken place, this is the heart and soul of the Bharat?
Yes. To my mind, we have to think about the fact that in our country, politics is always going to be messy. It's always going to be, in some ways, very, very noisy. And that is what is precisely happening. You know, I think somewhere along the way, we should celebrate the fact that Sanatan Dharma has never had one single holy book or one church or one pope. We have always looked at a diversity of opinions. We've got 33 kotis of deities that are, worthy of worship. Many people read that as 33 crores. It doesn't matter whether you read it as 33 kotis or 33 crores, because it leads to the same way. We take a great person like the Buddha and we absorb him as the 9th avatar of Vishnu. You could keep a deity of Guru Nanak or Jesus Christ in your puja. Your path to realization could be Shakti or Bhakti. You may call a stone a shivling and I may call a shivling a stone. We are all working towards that one greater divine experience, as it were.
Okay.
And if you look at this event that happened, even the Shankaracharyas were not speaking in the same voices. They were speaking across the aisle in different voices. But rather than celebrating this messiness and this diversity and the fact that we don't have one monolithic voice, instead we are bemoaning it. I feel that this is a moment for celebrating that this is exactly what we are, that Hindus are never united. We always have different opinions. We debate everything endlessly, and that's wonderful. That's what distinguishes us.
But can this also be a cause of confusion, as have been the opinions or perception of the people, because we have so many gods and so many philosophies that they profess, and we talk about so many of our scriptures. We have Mahabharata, Ramayana, we have the Vedas and several others. So how do we generate the single consciousness of Hindus across the globe, whichever god that they may follow and pray to, and whichever scriptures that they hold dear to, and come with the testament of how we recognize ourselves as modern Hindus.
Yeah. Well, to my mind, honestly, we just look at the we don't need to worry about trying to bring around one voice. I mean, that pretty much negates the whole idea of Sanatan Dharma, because in Sanatan Dharma you are taught that you can question the very existence of God. So and think about this, that the Rig Veda, which is our oldest scriptural text within Sanatan, describes the river Saraswati as glorious and immense. And we know that the Saraswati started drying up almost 8,000 odd years ago, which means, in other words, the Rig Veda is at least 8,000 years old. In other words, Sanatan has survived for thousands and thousands of years, in spite of all the onslaughts that happened. So what I'm saying is that don't worry about trying to create one voice. It's not needed, because it's the multiplicity of voices that have ensured your survival for thousands of years.
Okay, all right. Utpal Kaul also on the telecast with me, and Utpal ji, I want to understand that Hinduism being one of the most ancient religions of the world, why has the world not been able to understand it better, know it better, recognize it better?
Thank you very much for inviting me. Let me tell you, Jai Shri Ram. Ramaya Ramabhadraya Ramachandraya Manase Rughunathaya Nathaya Sitaya Patye. World understands it very nicely. They understand it better. But you must understand the what you call it Abraham religions, Christianity and Islam. They also understand Hinduism. As Ashwiniji was explaining you very nicely, we say we have Sangashanam, Samvadadam, Samomanasi Janatam, Deva Bhagam Yatha Purve, or we say world is one family. But the problem is, and Hinduism is one religion, we don't, Dharma, we don't convert people. We don't say that if you convert 10 people, 20 people, 100 people, you will go to heaven. We don't say that. We say Sarva Dharma Sambhav. So we were very peaceful people. We have never attacked any country in last 3,000 years. But we were attacked. So it was, reason was that we were, I think they thought they are too gentle. Question is, now we have tolerated for, can you believe, I have to add one thing, for 900 years, I repeat, 900 years, no Hindu temple was built in Delhi. It was only Birlaji built the biggest Hindu temple in 1935 to 40.
Right.
Because it was not allowed. It was not allowed. They understood they are too gentle. And now coming to the other point I want to add here, even Mahatma Gandhi said that we want Ram Raj. Our directive principles of state policy in our constitution are based on the Ram Raj. So we have to explain it to the public, to the people of our own nation. They understand, but they don't want to understand it. That Hindu is a totally secular. It was wrong in 1976 when secularism was put inside the constitution. It is unnecessarily. Because the constitution of India is totally secular. And so, world hour, we had nearly hundreds of departments of Sanskrit and Oriental studies in world over.
Okay.
But
all right. This talks about our rich history and culture and religion. And I also want to pose the question to you about how it has taken us 200 years to fight for our independence from the British. It has taken us after independence in 1947 another 76 years to realize that we still continue to be in the clutches of colonialism when we talk about the way we speak, the way we dress, the way we think, the way we still adulate all the legacy that has been given to us by the colonialists, by the British. Why do you think it has taken us so long to identify this, recognize this, come to terms with this? And are we now in the path of self-realization? And that's why we talk about rediscovery. That's why I'm talking about renaissance.
Unfortunately, these British had the policy of divide and rule, and they took the advantage, and the Muslim League accused Congress that it's a Hindu party, and Congress tried to establish that we are not Hindus, we are secular, we are not, all our brothers. So the narrative which Congress did for 120 years was very, very unfortunate. India was divided. Still, they were saying, no, we are not Hindus. We are secular. So they had not this priority. But I have to add one thing here. Today is a very important day. And this day came only and only because of Dr. Hedgewar's ideology. Dr. Hedgewar in 1925 founded RSS, and millions of workers gave this idea of Bharat. Because this idea was missing. The idea of Bharat was missing.
Okay, all right. Fair enough. And you know, coming to you, I have with me Rajalakshmi Joshi as well. Rajalakshmi, we talk about Mahabharata, Ramayana, the world's longest, biggest epics that have been written in the civilization. And then we talk about Plato and Aristotle, and we talk about Iliad. And how are these more recognized and acknowledged epics of the world? We take a cue from the Romans and the Greeks and the Egyptians when we talk about the ancient civilizations. But little is known about the Indus Valley civilization or the Rakhigari, or we talk about the Tamil civilization, the oldest that there is. How can we ensure that the world at this point knows about Ramayana, knows about Mahabharata, knows about the culture, the cultural, the religious, the administrative, political relevance of what Indian ethos stands for?
Jai Shri Ram Megha, and Jai Shri Ram to all your viewers also. And you know, that is a very interesting question. And I think within it in itself is the answer actually. Today, whatever was unfolding in front of all of us, in front of the whole world, I would say, is exactly the answer to what you were saying. You know, for the world to understand and for them to accept or even try to even explore our civilization or understand our culture, we ourselves have to be able to be proud of it and try to express it to the whole world. So just imagine that our previous prime ministers, you know, when they welcomed the dignitaries, like for example, I'm sorry, I have to name a few names here. Like when the first time the prime minister of an independent Bharat, he welcomes a foreign dignitary, he chooses not to show the Hindu side of things. He chooses not to show the Indian culture, but he chooses to show something, as irrelevant or as silly as maybe a rope trick or a snake charmer. So that actually takes away this entire culture because he feels embarrassed. He feels embarrassed by this, the values of Sanatan Dharma. He feels embarrassed by Hinduism himself. So that is why they chose not to portray anything close to Hinduism. So that was the first time that the world probably knew about what an independent India is. So, you know, that was the first time we had a chance to portray ourselves in front of the whole world. And unfortunately, that has stuck with our country. So now today what was happening is, you know, we take pride in our roots, in our culture, in our heritage, in what exactly Hinduism stands for. And at the same time, we tell the world that we are proud Hindus and we are also a superpower. We are somebody like Mohan Bhagwatji was speaking about a Vishwaguru. So, you know, being a Vishwaguru doesn't mean that you have to just get rid of all the Hinduism, get rid of all the Sanatan Dharma, get rid of all the Indian culture. It doesn't mean that. It means that you are in touch with your roots, with your culture. You are proud, your mentality, your mindset, everything it shows that you are a strong nation. You know, even nations have mindsets. So today, we as a nation, we have this mindset that we are proud of our own identity. You know, our
Okay,
identity
all right.
is not that
But,
of
okay,
a
fair enough.
colonized
You
nation.
make that point. Ashwin, quickly coming to you before I wrap this up, and we talk about what Mahatma Gandhi represented of India to the world. His very famous bhajan, Raghupati Raghav Raja Ram, took those pointers, took those important good things that Lord Ram represented as an ideal man. He spread the concept of charkha. He spoke about khadi, he spoke about non-violence, he spoke about Swadeshi movement, he spoke about how there has to be self-reliance in our country, there has to be make in India in our country. The world recognizes him as a global entity, an individual who was able to bring independence to our country. Do you think after so many decades, in 2024, we are able to have an individual who's carrying forward that legacy, whether it is Atithi Devo Bhava, or whether it is about Vishwamitra, or we talk about Vasudeva Kutumbakam? Are these ideologies and themes and tenets finally having a reverberating effect across the globe?
Yeah, I believe that actually what has happened is that for the first time we have shed a lot of this so-called unfortunate culture of political correctness, where we are now able to, in some ways, the Overton window has shifted. And we now have a lot of things that we can talk about dispassionately without immediately being labeled as either communal or bigoted or what have you, the labels that are normally attached to these sort of conversations. To my mind, I think when we are looking at Ram as the ideal, we need to understand that everyone has looked at Ram in very, very different ways. I mean, in the original Valmiki Ramayana, Ram is simply a Maryada Purushottam. In Tulsi Ramayana, he becomes worthy of worship. And in the Adbhut Ramayana, we see that it is Sita who's more powerful because she manifests as Durga and kills Ravan. We see these variations in the stories across the different forms of the Ramayana. We forget today that there is a Persian version called the Razmanama that was commissioned by Akbar. We forget that there is a Mapila Ramayana in which Ram, is celebrated by the Malabari Muslims as being a sultan. And why go far? You even have Allama Iqbal, who was no fan of Hinduism, calling Ram the Imam-e-Hind. So in that sense, Ram is a worthy ideal behind which this entire country can unite. And it doesn't matter what your religion is, what your faith is, what your culture is, what your language is, what your creed is, what your caste is. Today's ceremony was an indication of the fact that there were people from all across the country. There were gifts that had come from all across the country. Different people and workers from across the country worked with
Yes.
people. The Pran Pratishtha ceremony itself was carried out by multiple castes. So therefore, this is a coming together of Bharat. That's the way we should be seeing this.
Okay, again a comparison, if that can be drawn, between Gandhi and Modi.
No, I
And
don't
we
want
start off, I mean, the very premise with which Gandhi was able to bring together the conscience of the entire nation.
No, I think your comparison is a mistaken one. I think Narendra Modi ji is very, very clear. He is not in any way attempting to pander to any particular community whatsoever. He says that as far as Ram Rajya is concerned, it will treat everyone equally, period. And in that sense, I believe that this is a new Bharat, which is rather different to the Gandhian view of Bharat.
Okay, all right. I'm out of time, but I thank all of you for joining me on this very special telecast. We get to understand what India's future looks like and how important is Ram and the Ram Mandir as symbols of a new, rediscovered, a renaissance that India gets into in the coming years. Thanks for watching.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.